VT conversation series, Making the Chair Fit. Thank you for joining this episode. Let us know on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube in the comments that you are joining in. Last year, the Office for Inclusion and Diversity began hosting two conversation series. One was called Making the Chair Fit. The other was VT Unfinished. And Unfinished Conversations focused on unfinished conversations about identity, and we really accelerated those conversations after the murder of George Floyd. But Making the Chair Fit is about celebrating this incredible community that is Virginia Tech and thinking about how we're adjusting to this new and continuing challenges in our world. And you can see all our episodes on our Inclusive VT YouTube channel. So today's program is Making the Chair Fit, and Making the Chair Fit is a metaphor for how we are helping others to be able to make a difference in the world. It's about our motto here at Virginia Tech, Ut Prosim, that I may serve. And there's never been a more critical time for service than now. This is part of our Inclusive VT Difference Alumni Engagement Initiative. Inclusive VT Difference builds upon Inclusive VT, which is our institutional and individual commitment to our motto, Ut Prosim, that I may serve, in the spirit of community, diversity, and excellence. And the Inclusive VT Difference is a commitment to creating a more just and inclusive world starting at Virginia Tech. That's an opportunity for our friends and alumni, like our guest today, BK Fulton, to talk about how he is making a difference in the world. So I really love this series because it's such an opportunity to really share what Hokie Nation produces in a way in terms of our amazing alumni. And today, BK Fulton, I didn't even know how to introduce BK. There's just not one word. There's just no single word that can describe BK. So there's a series of words: entrepreneur, businessman, author, film producer, casino owner, Broadway show producer, investor. So he is an award-winning filmmaker, the author of 10 books, including the popular Mr. Business. This is an 8-book children's series. He has an Amazon top seller called The Tale of the Tea that won the National Nonfiction Book Award. He's recently produced a Broadway show called Thoughts of a Colored Man that was just released. He started a multimedia company called Solidify, and it's produced 4 films, which is just amazing for 1 year in its first year. And he's also a principal, really sort of, that speaks a lot to me, with Winner Circle Ventures, which is a $100 million plus strategic investment company supporting women and minorities. And so, wow, this is BK. So I'm so honored he's been here as part of our SOAR Sankofa Alumni in Residence, Business Alumni in Residence program. And I've just had the deep honor and privilege spending time with him and his wife, Jackie Stone, who's also visiting with him. And so welcome, BK, welcome.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate you sharing that generous introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. So, we start this series and we usually just ask folks to introduce themselves. And because you're so multifaceted and multidimensional, I would just love to hear how you would introduce or describe yourself.
Well, you did a great job. I mean, I'm a humble person, so I tend to just say, hi, I'm BK. And if someone presses about the things that we're doing, I may say something cute like, I'm just a humble servant trying to make my way in the big city.
Oh, wow. Okay. I like that. I appreciate that. So you did share a little bit about sometimes we need to celebrate who we are so we can be a role model for others. So I appreciate that. So this series, as I've said, is called Making the Chair Fit. And
let me jump in right there. One of the lessons I've learned is, as to accolades, it's always best when it comes from someone else.
True. But sometimes we got to toot our own horn a little bit.
You're right. That's true.
Okay. So this is called Making the Chair Fit. And the idea came to me during the pandemic because I was working from home and I was sitting in a man's gaming chair because that was the only chair I had in my house to start creating my home office. So I had to make that big chair fit. And I was like a small woman in this big gaming chair. but I felt that we were all trying to make our homes into offices and to adjust. And so I would love to know what your favorite chair is and why.
Wow. My favorite chair is probably the red chair in my screening room. And the reason for that is if I'm sitting in that chair watching a film, it means that it's either in post-production or it's in the marketplace. And both of those are really good things. Because when people ask me what's my favorite part of the movie process, I tell them the end. When you get to a place where you have something that you can offer fans and you can monetize and have an opportunity to recoup. So you got to put it all together and then distribute it, of course. And so for me, sitting in that chair is symbolic of getting to the end.
Is that the chair that we've got your picture in?
That is the
leather chair. Okay, I like that. It looks very sophisticated, and
it's
but it
quite
does also got that movie look to it.
And it's comfortable, and then it has these little lights on it, these blue lights and blue, and one of my favorite colors. And so I will cut on the blue light and then put my favorite beverage in there while I'm checking out the film. It's a cool thing. It's kind of fun, actually.
Well, thank you. So one of the, we've been spending a couple of days together, and I've really been struck by your journey here at Virginia Tech and the honesty that you've shared about sort of the challenges you experienced personally and how you overcame them. And I wondered if you could just share a little bit about what it was like to be an African American male student in that late 1980s, early 1989. And given that we, had the honor and privilege of talking with Irvin Pedru, the first Black student here in 1953, I just wonder what your reflections are now, all those years later, about your time here as a Black man at Virginia Tech.
Sure. Having spent a little time with Irv, I am slow to complain. Because during his day, he couldn't eat on campus, he couldn't stay on campus. He had challenges that I can only imagine the difficulty in dealing with them. For me, when I arrived on campus, my parents dropped me off. And I think the first thing that struck me was I was turning my radio. I think I had a little boom box at the time. They were popular back then. And I wasn't finding stations that I was accustomed to. And I said, oh, this is going to be different. I met my roommate, Steve Kaysen, a wonderful man from Staunton, Virginia. We're still friends to this day. In fact, I consider him one of my best friends. We share a lot. We're honest with each other. And it's the kind of relationship that you would expect from a friend. But my first years here weren't the best. And I don't think it was because of the school per se. I don't think I leaned in the way that I learned to later. And so I was spending a lot of time playing basketball, dancing at Tots, the top of the stairs for people who are not familiar with that, and dancing at the Marriott, and then occasionally hitting the books. That is not a formula for success. So my first year and the year after that, I really was struggling academically. And I started to get these notes from the registrar's office. And it was a scary thing. And I wasn't sure if I would actually make it at Virginia Tech. And I joined the National Guard in preparation for leaving Virginia Tech. And I went to the library to finish my escape plan. And it was at that time that I feel like it was a divine intervention. And I ended up in the section of the library that had information on the history and culture of African Americans. And in any library, the E185.5 section, if you have a Dewey Decimal System, that section has that material. And I started reading about Lewis Latimer and Granville T. Woods and Elijah McCoy and these inventors. And I was an engineering student, so I was intrigued. And it lit a fire under me, opened a curiosity, built a confidence that wasn't there prior. And so I went from the probations list to the dean's list to the board of directors. And my message to young people, to students in particular, is that if I can do it, they can do it. And having that library and those books was really a beginning of the person that I would become. And then I learned how to leverage my professors, leverage other serious students. I think I became an officer in the honor system. I learned how to make the most of the resources at Virginia Tech. I mean, Virginia Tech is a resource-rich university. It was then, it is now. In fact, the reason I applied to Virginia Tech was because it was the first school in the country to require incoming engineers to buy computers as part of their standard school supply. I was in that class, the very first one. And so this technology, fast forward, has always been a part of my life. I mean, I've owned computers longer than most people. And it has been part of the highlight of my career. So a lot of the things, you mentioned the Smithsonian and my work there, we won a Smithsonian Laureate medal. And a lot of that stuff was driven by the comfort that I had with technology. I mean, we call the young people now technology natives. That group of us who came to engineering school in the mid 80s at Virginia Tech were probably the original computer natives, because we did everything with them and developed a comfort with them, and it became a tool in our lifelong quiver.
You know, I was an English major undergrad. And so that being in the library and remembering this Dewey Decimal, because the world has changed, you know, and the libraries are doing so many wonderful things now. They're just not places where books are, but there's just something special about going and you're in that, you know, those little hallways and books are everywhere and you start to see the similarity of different books. You're like, oh, this is my spot, you know?
Right.
Talk a little bit about writing books. You've written 10 books, I believe. I mean, you've won a National Book Award. You're writing children's books. You're working on a middle school series. And obviously your books portray and talk about the experiences of African-American children and adults. But so just share a little bit about how you've transitioned into this creative space as a writer.
Sure. My very first book was a book about my little sister. It's called Shauna. And actually, our very own Nikki Giovanni wrote the cover note on the back of it. It was very nice of her. She was a professor of mine when I was at Tech and a person who really helped me to develop some of the confidence I needed to go out into the world. But Mr. Business, The Adventures of Little BK are about my childhood. And he's a third grader. And he's got checkered pants, a hat with flaps, glasses, and a briefcase. And so the first book is called The First Day of School, where he gets chased home from school. This really happened. And this guy named Grimes, and I don't change his name in the book. And I mess with him because he's my buddy. He was here for a little while at Tech. And I ran to my dog, Rusty, and so he stopped chasing me because Rusty started growling. And so Rusty saved me, and the book was about having a friend, a good friend, always having your back. And so Rusty was that for me at that time. But Grimes became a friend over the course of the 8-book series. And but for me, my process is that I think about the lesson that I want to share, the lesson that I want to convey. And then I think about a time in my life where that lesson really showed through. And then I sit down and write. Now, the crazy thing is the first 7 books in the series, we did it all in 1 year.
Wow.
So I literally sit down and start writing. And some of those books, I was able to write in probably 20 minutes. No, children's books are, the Mr. Business books run from 25 to about 39 pages.
Yeah.
So not too long, but you're able to get the text down. Then you have to work with the graphic designer to capture images that reflect the text. And
Right.
so my illustrator was having a little difficulty keeping up. So I said, how about if I draw the pictures for you? And I'll just do kind of stick figures, but I will draw them so you don't have to do as much translation of my words. And so we did that, and we were able to get through 7 full books in the first year. And then the other books have come since then. I think book 8, we probably took a month or 2. And then the Tale of the Tea, I wrote that one over the course of a long weekend. And it was a bunch of emails back and forth with one of my wife's law partners, Jonathan Blank. And we decided that the emails were so honest and thought-provoking that I reached out to my publisher and said, hey, I've been working on something. If we can put this together in a coherent way, would you publish it? And she said, of course. And so in a matter of months, we started June, July. By August, it was available for sale.
Wow.
And now we've gone on to make the books, the first 7 Mr. Business books, Shauna and The Tale of the Tea, also available on audible.com.
That's great.
We also make all of the Mr. Business books available on caribou.com. Caribou is a resource for children. The cool thing about Caribou, though, is that all military families get to access this Caribou for free. Wow. So for all servicemen and women, the Mr. Business books are free. The other thing we do for any reader is that we make a curriculum available for each book. We make that available at our website for free. And we work with one of the top graduate schools of education to make sure the pedagogy is correct. So we're having fun, and we're working with partners to make sure that we make the books available in as many ways as possible.
I want to know, how do you do it all? I mean, you're doing a whole lot of things, in this last probably 2-3 years of your life, you just exponentially have made transformational change. How do you do it?
Well, you have to get to a place where you trust the things that you've learned. You trust the people that you work with. You have to be strong in your faith. At the end of the day, all of us are more capable than we probably imagine. There are students who are A students who are not performing at A level. There are people who have entrepreneurial talents that haven't tapped them yet. And as I read those stories back in the library, one of the common threads were these very talented people doing many things. Mm-hmm. On the cover of The Tale of the Tea, for example, is Dr. George Grant. Most people have no idea who he is. But in 1899, he invented the golf tee. The wooden golf tee was invented by an African-American guy who was also the first African-American professor at Harvard and a dentist. Throughout our legacy, there have been these examples of people doing several things with their life. Mm-hmm. And so reading that helped me to believe that I could be one of those people as well. My wife is kind, she loves me, and so she says I'm a natural polymath. And that may be the case, but part of the secret sauce in doing the work that I do is I have fun doing it. So it doesn't feel like work to me. If our movie needs a song, I get up and write the song. And then if I can find the right tune, I'll sing the song. And it feels good. When I'm moved to craft a poem, or when I have to write the editor's notes for our magazine, we've been doing this every month for 3 years now. I just wake up, I decide what I want to write about, and it pours out. It's kind of interesting, but I've learned to go with it. You get into what I call a flow, and it hasn't failed me. I love helping others to find their talents and to get into the flow. But it's definitely an act of faith, and also that confidence that comes from doing. And so the more you do, the better you get at it. And here's the funny thing. For people that see my bio or look at some of the companies that we're connected to, they say the same thing. Do you ever sleep? How do you do it all? Here's the crazy thing. Because I'm the fish in this fishbowl and I'm doing this, I'm like, I'm not even going strong yet. This is like half speed. This is, it's good. Okay, I'll buy that, but it's not all that we can do. And so I guess I'm saying there's always a higher gear, and I'm always looking for the higher gear. I was talking to students earlier today and telling them that they should choose to be excellent. They were made excellent by design. They've got to tap into it. And if they can't do great things right out of the box, do small things in a great way.
I love that quote. I really love that. I wrote that down. I tweeted that. I think I tweeted that out because it's a wonderful thing, because we can't always do everything, great things all the time. And a lot of times great is so huge in our minds. We're like, oh, we can't do that. But if you do small things in great ways, then you can really transform. Over time, you see transformational change. So I love that. I really love that quote. You talked a little bit about helping others to find their talent and to develop their potential. And I think you're really a person who wants to help folks actualize their potential. And so this, you're our inaugural SOAR Sankofa Business Alumnus in Residence. And the theme is reaching back to the next generation. And you've been having a lot of conversations with our students, and we'll continue this evening and tomorrow as well. But it's part of the inclusive ET difference that I spoke about a little bit earlier. But I would love to just have you share what Sankofa means to you.
Sure. If my memory serves me correctly, Sankofa kind of comes from a Ghanaian tradition, and it means to reach back. It's often symbolized by a bird with its feet facing forward, its head turned back, and with an egg, the future, in its mouth. So it's carrying the future forward and acknowledging a past. And so I think that is very appropriate, because for me, having the honor of being your inaugural Sankofa Business Alumnus in Residence means that I get to take the baton that people like Irv and others handed off, and being here and opening the door for me to be here. And I get to carry that forward and perhaps create opportunity for other students and inspire other students to know that they too can be successful at Virginia Tech. And one of the things I love about the Sankofa project is that it's for everybody. Mm-hmm. I may be a person in brown skin, and I have a unique experience because of that, but excellence is universal. Doing work in a smart way is universal. Treating people with kindness is universal. Leaning in to the resources at a great university like Virginia Tech is universal. And so we have to take the opportunities that we are given and that we create and make the most of them. And so at the end of the day, Sankofa is about really making the most of every single opportunity that you get. And I see this as a privilege and also a responsibility, because when we get the baton, if we don't carry it forward, we're kind of just standing in place where we've perhaps wasted an opportunity. And I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the person that says, that where people say, I like what PK is doing. I want to help him, or I'm inspired to do things in a similar fashion. And so when we have that, then I feel like I will have been successful. I know some people say each one teach one. And generally I support that thinking, but I ask people to take that higher gear. Each one teach as many as you can. Because if one teaches one, when I go, it's one left, there's not really growth. It's a zero addition. But if one teaches five, okay, when I go, it's still, 4 more. And if we can teach 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000, and the technologies we have today allow us to magnify positive voices, encouraging voices. I mean, today we're live on various platforms, and there's an opportunity for hundreds, if not thousands of people to see this. And then, I don't know if we're recording or not, but if we're recording, then there's an opportunity for replays and to play later, and it'll be on your network. And so at the end of the day, Sankofa is about taking advantage of the opportunity to go forward with during your leg of the race. And right now it's our time, so it's on us to carry the future forward.
Each one teach as many as you can. I like that. I really do, because I have heard each one teach one, right? Just that mindset of giving back, but as many as you can is a different shift. It's this leveling up concept that I think is really very much a part of you. I remember the first year of BCI, we had some wonderful facilitators, and they would say to the students, that's our Black College Institute for rising high school juniors and seniors with talent. And they would say to the students, time to level up, level up. I was like, what's that level up? They're like, you don't play games. That's gaming world. You got to level up to the next level. And I think that's very much a part of your psychology and constituency. And so I really appreciate that sort of expansive thinking. On that line, you and your wife, Jackie Stone's amazing lawyer and just a powerful leader in her own right. You have made really a significant investment of your treasure towards Virginia Tech as part of, the inclusive VT difference. And I'm wondering if you can just share a little bit about why you've made that decision to give back in that way to Virginia Tech.
Sure. I think it's important to give of one's time. And I think it's also important to give of one's treasures. We've been blessed. We work hard. And telling students, I believe in you, showing students the blueprint, that's part of the work, but also I believe in you so much that I'm going to put this money into your education, into your learning experience. And that's the other part of the equation. I mean, students are the lifeblood of universities, and resources are what allow students to have this experience, to have the BCC experience, the BCI experience, the Virginia Tech experience. And I know it worked for me. And if it can work for me, it can work for anybody.
Great, thank you. So what's one piece of wisdom or advice that was shared with you that has been the most transformational in your life? So wisdom or advice that someone shared with you that you've carried with you.
There's a lot of things. One of the things Nikki Giovanni told me was the difference between an A student and a B student is rewrites. And so I learned to proofread and spend time with my work and fix the things that I could before I turned in my papers and whatnot. So that was really good advice. Some additional good advice I got from a professor who told me or taught me to read the rules. The story goes like this. I was, during that phase where I wasn't doing so well, I was invited to take an AP class. And the AP classes at that time required you to at least have a 3.0, and I didn't. But the rules said, if you're invited by the professor, you can take the class. And so the professor pointed that out, and I was like, oh, wow, I like that. And then when I got into the class and it was 3 hours of credit for 2 hours of class, and I was like, what? You get a whole extra hour? And then they said, well, like, pick, what books do you want to read? I'm like, you pick your own books too? I'm like, man, I should have been taking AP classes the whole while. And so learning to read the rules. So that's part of the reason I went to law school, because I wanted to know how to read the rules. And then, you know, I also created a blueprint, actually a 50-year plan based on the lives of others, and all of them were lawyers. So I decided, okay, I better do this law thing. But if you, for people listening, especially students, at this age, you're not always 100% certain what you want to do, and that's okay, and that's normal. One of the ways that I was able to hone in on my career and what I might do was I studied the lives of successful people, people that I admired. And you can read the short version of their bio, take the Wikipedia version even, and then you isolate the common denominators and you use that as your blueprint for your best life. And then as you get more mature, more interest, you can add that scaffolding to that blueprint. But when you're in this phase where you're young, you're not quite sure, follow somebody else's plan who is successful. And that'll have you in the right trajectory. So then when things pop up, do I go to this internship or that internship? You put it against your plan and you say, which one serves my plan better? And then you can make a decision. It's worked for me. I still write things down. I still check off boxes when I'm doing things that are important. And I highly encourage people to do at least a 10 to 20-year plan. But if you really want to swing for the fences, do a 50-year plan.
Well, you know, I appreciate that 50-year. I don't have a 50-year plan, but I appreciate that vision. And actually, Stacey Abrams in her book also talks about that, is creating this big looking way into the future and thinking about what are the steps to get there. And
let me share this. It's a quote that I share often, but each of us has the capacity to be just phenomenal. And God blesses all of us to turn our dreams and ideas into their tangible equivalents. But you have to have the faith, be willing to do the work, and expect the outcomes. Writing it down is part showing that expectation. It gives you something to aim for. And then if you're willing to do the work, it's like a set of stairs, right? If you climb each step, you'll get to the top. Some people stub their toe on the first or second step and they stop. Some people get halfway up and they decide that they're tired. And some people will make it all the way to the top. Everybody, or most people, can make it to the top, but unfortunately not everybody goes all the way all the time, and we definitely go at a different pace. When I was younger, I wasn't sure of all these things, so I probably moved a little slower on that staircase to success. Now that I know how to do it, and I'm surrounded by a great network and great support, I can move faster. So now I'm jumping steps and jumping 2 or 3, you know, and then learning to create my own staircases. And so one of the things I think was important that I shared with students during my visit here is that, you know, when we look out, we see whatever, and what we see in plain sight, is available to everybody. But vision is when you can see what's around the corner, when you can see what's about to happen. And leaning into your training, leaning into this idea of writing things down and measuring things up against your plan. All those things contribute to helping you to develop vision. And once you have that, and then if you put the work behind it, you will get to the top of your success staircase.
Gosh, I think I'm just going to leave it at that. So vision and work allows us to reach the next level, to level up and to achieve our dreams. Thank you so much, BK, for just coming, for taking, almost a whole week of your amazing life and career to give back to Virginia Tech with your time. I know it's made a difference in so many students' lives, and I just really want to thank you and Jackie deeply for your commitment to Virginia Tech and your time. And so I'm going to thank you for having us. We've appreciated the time here and look forward to the next few days. Well, we got a game too to go to and win, right, on Saturday. that too. Go Virginia Tech. Go Hokies. Go Hokies. So I'm going to just share a few extra thoughts. One of the roles that I play, and I think BK mentioned this, is Virginia Tech has a lot of resources. And we have those resources to support the success of faculty, staff, and students, but those resources are often based on the generosity of alumni. And so the inclusive VT difference is really thinking about how do we continue to have the resources that we need to support the success of our students and our community. And so we're just asking alums to really think about what is it that you might be able to do in terms of your time, talent, and treasures. One of our programs is called SOAR. It's a Student Opportunity and Achievement Resources, and we provide students with coaching personally, financially, academically, to help them kind of climb that staircase that BK talked about. And one of the greatest challenges we found for our students is financial. Is that they reach a point and maybe they don't have rent, they can't buy books, it's small things. And so the emergency fund, and we partner with student affairs, but emergency funds have really made a difference for the success of students. And so we're hopeful that as you think about ways, especially the sesquicentennial year, 150 years of Virginia Tech, to continue to support the legacy of the institution, you will think about small ways that you can continue to make a difference. And so thank you for joining us today. Thank you for thinking about how to make the inclusive VT difference, and thank you for being part of our community. Thank you. Thank you.